In the endless dark of space, voices of 1,000 species filled the great council chamber. They spoke in pride, in arrogance, in laughter that echoed across the stars. They mocked one name, one world, one species that they believed to be the weakest of all: humanity. The council members sat on their thrones of light and metal, their skin glowing, their scales shining, their minds connected through strange energies. These were the great rulers of the galaxy. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had witnessed wars that consumed suns. And yet, today, they found joy in ridiculing the small blue world called Earth. Fragile, short-lived, primitive, hissed the scaled Vorax high speaker. Barely out of their caves, laughed the shimmering beings of the Thar Council. Humans think themselves brave, but they are only insects, another voice declared. The chamber roared with alien laughter. But far away, on that small planet spinning quietly in the corner of a forgotten arm of the galaxy, humanity heard those whispers. They knew the galaxy was watching. They knew they were mocked, underestimated, and dismissed as nothing. And that was a mistake. The story of how it began was not one of glory. Humanity had only just entered the stars. Their ships were new, clumsy, slow compared to the elegant vessels of alien empires. Their weapons were crude compared to energy cannons and plasma storms that other species wielded. Earth was not ready for war. Or at least, that's what the galaxy thought. It started with a challenge. The Vorax Empire sent a message to Earth. A challenge wrapped in arrogance, broadcast across the stars for all to see. If you are a people of strength, prove it. Face us in the arena of war. Let the galaxy see your courage before your extinction. The galaxy cheered. They thought it would be a slaughter. A lesson for Earth. A way to remind every small, young species that survival was only for the powerful. On Earth, leaders gathered in silence. In hidden rooms beneath mountains, in orbiting stations above the planet, generals, scientists, and strategists came together. The challenge could not be ignored. To refuse was to accept humiliation forever. To fight was to face certain destruction. Or was it? Humanity had something the galaxy did not expect. Not strength of muscle. Not lifespan of 1,000 years. Not technology of glowing energy. What they had was something far more dangerous. Something the galaxy had forgotten. Human cunning. When the day of the trial arrived, the galaxy watched. Millions tuned into the Council's grand broadcast. Planets paused their routines. Armies stopped their marches. Children and elders stared into the skies as screens lit up with the image of Earth's fleet arriving in the arena. It was small, pathetic, even. A handful of gray ships, their hulls simple and unpolished. The galaxy laughed again. The Vorax fleet, shining with sharp edges and glowing weapons, stood across the void. Hundreds of warships, each one capable of tearing planets apart. They filled the arena like a storm of steel and fire. The signal was given. The war began. Silence fell across the galaxy as they watched. The first shots came from the Vorax. Blazing energy beams tore through the void, striking Earth ships. But then, something unexpected happened. The beams missed. Not because the humans blocked them, but because the ships were already gone, moving in ways the galaxy had never seen before. Sharp turns. Sudden drops. Maneuvers that no alien captain would dare attempt, for their ships were too large, too heavy, too proud. Human ships danced. They weaved between beams, twisted through fire, slipped into shadows of asteroids that no one thought could be used as cover. The galaxy leaned closer. The laughter was gone now, replaced by confusion. And then the first human strike came. It was not a powerful energy weapon. It was not a glowing beam. It was something simple, primitive. A missile, a weapon the galaxy had long abandoned, thought useless against modern shields. But this was not a normal missile. When it struck, the Vorax ship shattered. Not because of raw power, but because of the precision. The missile had found a weakness, A small gap in the armor. A place no alien commander would even think to guard. One ship fell. Then, another. The galaxy gasped. The humans were not fighting with strength. They were fighting with knowledge. Every strike, every move, every explosion was planned. It was not war. It was a hunt. And for the first time, the mighty Vorax realized they were the prey. Minutes passed. Not hours. Not days. Minutes. That was all it took. The Vorax fleet, proud rulers of the stars, reduced to wreckage. Fire and silence filled the arena. And in the center, small, battered, but unbroken, the human fleet stood. The galaxy did not laugh anymore. For in those few minutes, humanity had done what no one believed possible. They had taken the mockery of the galaxy and turned it into fear. And this was only the beginning. The council chamber was silent. The silence was heavier than stone, louder than thunder. Not a single alien dared to laugh now. The screen still flickered with the broken image of the Vorax fleet, wreckage burning in the void, fragments drifting like dead stars. This was not possible. Not in the minds of the galaxy's greatest empires. No young species had ever stood against an elder race and survived. And yet, humanity had not only survived, they had won. Their envoys, beings of shifting light, whispered in disbelief. They should not have this ability. Their technology is centuries behind ours. The Vorax High Speaker slammed his clawed hand on the council table. His voice was a growl, filled with shame and rage. Trickery. It was deception. Their victory is a lie. But deep inside, the galaxy knew it was no lie. They had all seen it. Humanity's ships had danced with precision that no alien fleet could match. Their weapons, though primitive, struck with terrifying accuracy. The battle had ended in minutes, and no empire could explain how. The Council of Worlds demanded answers. Who were these humans? How did they do this? On Earth, however, the people did not cheer. Their victory was real, yes, but they understood the truth. This was not the end. This was the beginning of something far more dangerous. In a hidden base beneath the Atlantic Ocean, the leaders of humanity gathered. Generals, admirals, scientists, and quiet figures whose names were never spoken. They watched the galaxy's reaction. They studied the silence. "They will not forgive us," one admiral said. "We humiliated them." Another replied, "Humiliation is nothing compared to fear. And now, they fear us." The scientists did not speak of weapons. They spoke of psychology, of patterns, of weaknesses. Humanity had not defeated the Vorax with superior firepower. They had defeated them by thinking differently. The galaxy had grown arrogant, predictable, trapped in their own traditions of war. Humans had no such traditions. They improvised. They adapted. They struck where no one expected. That was their true weapon. Back in the council, the debates grew hotter. Some empires demanded punishment. "Destroy Earth now, before their trickery spreads," shouted the scaled generals of the Vorax. Others hesitated. The silent empires, the watchers, those who had grown tired of endless wars, they began to see humanity not as insects, but as something else. Something dangerous. Something useful. The galaxy was dividing. But the humans, they had already begun preparing for the next step. Above Earth, shipyards glowed. Not vast fleets, not endless armies, but careful designs. Small, sharp, clever ships unlike anything in the galaxy. Their weapons were not the strongest. Their shields were not the toughest. But their strategies were unmatched. A human fleet did not fight like a wall of steel. It fought like a swarm of shadows. It appeared where no one expected. It struck once, precisely, and vanished before the enemy understood what happened. The galaxy was still mocking Earth in whispers, but the laughter was nervous now. The memory of the Vorax defeat played again and again across alien channels. Children of distant stars grew up hearing the story of the day the weak ones ended a war in minutes. Yet, in the darkness of space, a storm was building. The Vorax Empire could not accept the humiliation. Their honor was shattered, their pride broken. They gathered their fleets, more than ever before. Thousands of ships, larger than mountains, armed with weapons that could shatter moons. They would crush Earth completely, erase the insult, and prove to the galaxy that the Vorax were still supreme. The Council permitted it. They thought it would be quick. They thought this time, humanity could not win. But humanity knew they were coming. On Earth, preparations began in silence. Civilians continued their lives, unaware of the storm. But beneath the oceans, inside the mountains, and in the cold black of orbit, humanity sharpened its mind. Their weapons remained simple. But their strategies grew sharper than blades. One scientist, watching the stars through tired eyes, whispered the truth that the galaxy had not yet learned. They think war is about strength. They are wrong. War is about time. And time is always against the arrogant. The day came. The Vorax fleet entered the solar system, a wave of fire and steel stretching from horizon to horizon. The galaxy tuned in once more, eager to watch Earth's destruction. Some cheered for revenge. Others watched in quiet fear. But humanity did not tremble. Their fleet rose from Earth like hunters ready for the kill. Small, quiet, unshining compared to the Vorax giants. The battle began. This time, there was no laughter. The galaxy held its breath. And once again, humanity did the impossible. The stars burned with the light of war. The Vorax fleet entered the solar system like a tide of steel and flame. Their ships were monstrous, each one the size of cities, bristling with cannons that glowed like suns. Thousands of them, forming a wall that stretched across the void. The galaxy watched through the Council's great broadcast. Entire planets stopped their daily lives to witness what they believed would be Earth's final moment. The weak species had embarrassed the mighty once, but no one thought they could do it again. This time, the Vorax came prepared. On Earth, alarms whispered through hidden bases. Leaders spoke few words. There was no panic, no fear. Humanity had known this day would come. And they had been waiting. From orbit, small human ships began to rise. They were nothing compared to the giants of the Vorax. Thin, gray, sharp-edged vessels that looked fragile under the glow of alien cannons. The galaxy murmured in disbelief. They will be crushed, voices echoed across stars. The battle began. The first wave of Vorax fire lit up the solar system. Energy beams, plasma storms, and detonations brighter than lightning cut across the void. Whole swarms of missiles poured forward like burning rain. To the galaxy, it seemed over before it began. No small fleet could survive that fire. But humanity was not where the shots landed. The human fleet vanished. Ships scattered in impossible patterns, breaking formation, twisting into paths no alien captain would dare attempt. Some dove into the asteroid belt, using rocks as shields. Others burned engines toward the sun, their hulls almost melting, then swung back in slingshot maneuvers that confused every Vorax tracker. The galaxy leaned closer. This was not how fleets fought. Alien armadas always moved in formation, always advanced in strength. Humans fought like shadows, unpredictable, scattered, everywhere at once. The Vorax commanders shouted in rage. Hold formation. Crush them. But then the first explosion came. A Vorax battleship, massive as a mountain, tore apart from the inside. Not by brute force, but by precision. A single human missile had slipped through its defenses and struck a vulnerable joint between power cores. The ship detonated, its fragments colliding with its own allies. The council chamber gasped. Then another Vorax ship fell. And another. It was not power. It was not superior technology. It was calculation. Every strike was exact. Every movement was planned. Humanity was not fighting the Vorax fleet. They were dissecting it. The galaxy was stunned. A voice whispered in the chamber, They do not fight wars, they solve them. The Vorax fired harder, desperate to crush the smaller ships. But the more they tried, the more mistakes they made. Human ships lured them into traps, asteroids redirected by hidden engines, mines disguised as debris, false signals that pulled Vorax vessels into ambushes. The humans were outnumbered 100-1, but they turned the battlefield into a puzzle. And the Vorax were too proud to realize they were already losing. Minutes passed. Only minutes. Gigantic warships burned. The proud Vorax fleet broke apart under its own weight, scattered, confused, bleeding fire into the black. Humanity had done it again. And this time, the galaxy did not laugh. They did not mock. They watched in fear. For what they saw was not chance. Not trickery. It was mastery. A species that had been underestimated, ignored, insulted, turning war into something the elder races had never imagined. On Earth, the command centers were silent as the last Vorax ship cracked apart. No cheering. No celebration. They knew this was not the end. One general spoke quietly, his voice heavy. Now the galaxy knows. They will come again. Stronger. All of them. The scientist beside him nodded. Yes. But now they will fight us in fear. And fear makes even giants stumble. The council chamber was chaos. Some empires demanded Earth's destruction immediately. Others whispered about alliances, fearing what would happen if humanity stood against them. The galaxy was dividing, faster and sharper than ever before. But one truth had already been carved into history. Humanity was no longer weak. No longer ignored. No longer mocked. They were hunters in a galaxy of prey. And the war had only just begun. The great council chamber, once filled with laughter, now trembled with fear. The holographic image of the destroyed Vorax fleet still floated above the council table. Wreckage, flames, silence, proof of what humanity had done. The voices of 100 species filled the air. Some shouted in anger, some in fear, some in desperate whispers. "They are a danger," cried the scaled Threx warlord. "If they can defeat the Vorax, they can defeat us all." "They must be destroyed now," hissed the Clith speaker, her many eyes blazing. "Do not wait, do not hesitate. Crush Earth before it grows stronger." But others spoke with caution. The silent LYR, beings of crystal and thought, hummed in low tones. "We should not act in haste. To fight them now may bring only disaster. They are clever, too clever." The council was breaking apart. The galaxy, once united in its mockery of Earth, was now divided by fear. The Vorax High Speaker stood tall, his pride bleeding into his words. "I will not rest until Earth is ashes. They shamed my people. They must be erased." His claws dug into the table as he roared. "If the council will not join me, then the Vorax will march alone." But even as he shouted, everyone knew the truth. The Vorax had already lost twice. Alone, they could not win. And in the shadows of the chamber, the whispers grew darker. Not every empire wanted humanity destroyed. Some wanted to use them. Some wanted to study them. And some wanted to ally with them. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy was uncertain. Meanwhile, far from the council's chaos, Earth was quiet. In secret bunkers deep under ice, in orbital stations hidden beyond the moon, humanity prepared. They did not build vast armadas. They did not forge massive cannons. Instead, they built carefully. Each ship unique, each weapon precise, each strategy sharpened like a blade. Their true power was not numbers. It was thinking. In a dark chamber beneath the Atlantic, the human council met again. Generals, scientists, admirals, and silent figures known only as strategists. The room was filled with shadows, the only light coming from glowing maps of the galaxy. "The council is divided," one strategist said. "Some want to destroy us. Some want to join us. All of them fear us." Another leaned forward. Fear is a weapon. But it cuts both ways. If they unite against us, we will not survive. Silence fell. Finally, an old general spoke. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. Then we must make sure they do not unite. We must divide them further. We must turn their fear into mistrust, into chaos. The others nodded. Humanity could not fight every empire at once. But they could make the empires fight each other. And so, the next phase began. Small human ships, invisible to scanners, slipped quietly into alien space. They carried no armies, no heavy weapons. Only information. Secrets stolen, messages forged, whispers planted. Soon, the galaxy would be filled with doubt. The Zor Collective would believe the Threx were plotting against them. The Clith would suspect betrayal from the Thar envoys. Old rivalries, once forgotten, began to burn again. Humanity did not need to fire a shot. They only needed to pull at the threads. Back in the council chamber, confusion grew. Reports of betrayal flooded in. Accusations flew across the floor. You broke the treaty. You moved fleets into my border. You planned with Earth behind our backs. The chamber turned into a battlefield of words. And in the shadows, humanity smiled. But Earth knew this game was dangerous. The galaxy was vast, and for every empire divided, another would rise in fury. Humanity was clever, yes, but one mistake could bring the fire of 1,000 suns upon them. In orbit, soldiers trained harder than ever before. Pilots practiced maneuvers until their bodies shook. Scientists worked day and night, creating tools the galaxy had never imagined. Not always stronger. Not always bigger. Just unexpected. One weapon was being tested in silence. A device small enough to fit inside a shuttle, yet powerful enough to blind an entire fleet's sensors. Another project whispered of stealth drives, engines that left no trail in the dark. The galaxy prepared for war. Humanity prepared for something worse. And then, a new message arrived. It was not from the Vorax. Not from the Threx. Not from the Council. It was from a silent empire. The LYR, beings of crystal, who had watched without judgment. Their message was simple, their words glowing across the void. We see what you are. We know what you can become. If you wish to survive, come to us. Human leaders stared at the message. An offer. A chance. Or perhaps, a trap. In the shadows of Earth's war room, silence fell. The future of humanity, and the fate of the galaxy, now balanced on a choice. Trust, or suspicion. And in that silence, one truth remained. The galaxy no longer mocked Earth. It feared them. And fear would change everything. The message from the LYR repeated again and again, glowing across the war room screens. We see what you are. We know what you can become. If you wish to survive, come to us. The human leaders stared in silence. The LYR were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Mysterious, quiet, made of crystal and light. They rarely spoke to outsiders, and when they did, their words were often riddles. No one truly understood them. Why now? A general muttered. They ignored us before. Why reach out after the Vorax fall? A scientist leaned forward, her voice low. Because they fear what we've done. Or, because they know something we don't. The council debated through the night. Some argued it was a trap, a way to lure Earth into weakness. Others saw opportunity, knowledge, perhaps even an alliance, from beings who had watched the galaxy for ages. Finally, a decision was made. Humanity would answer. Not with armies, not with fleets, but with a single ship. A small vessel, fast and silent, carrying a crew handpicked for caution and cunning. It slipped out of Earth's orbit without fanfare, its trail hidden from the eyes of the Council. The galaxy did not know. Only humanity and the LYR. Days turned into weeks as the ship crossed empty space. The crew remained on edge. They spoke little, each aware that they might not return. The stars grew brighter, colder, until at last, the LYR appeared. Their world was unlike any the humans had seen. Not green with forests, not blue with oceans. It glowed. A planet of crystal towers, rising like frozen lightning into the sky. Energy pulsed through the ground like veins of fire. Light shimmered across the atmosphere, bending and twisting as though the world itself was alive. The human ship descended carefully, guided by signals of pure resonance, sounds that were more like music than language. And then, the LYR appeared. They were tall, slender beings of living crystal. Their bodies shimmered with colors that shifted as they moved. Their voices were not spoken, but resonated directly in the mind, like echoes of glass breaking in perfect harmony. Humans, the LYR spoke, their words soft yet heavy. You do not belong to the old ways. You do not march in lines. You do not bow to patterns. You are disruption. The human captain stepped forward. You called us. Why? The LYR's colors shifted, glowing deeper. Because the galaxy has made a mistake. They believe you are only a danger to them. But you are also a danger to something greater. Something they do not see, because they have forgotten how to look. The humans exchanged uneasy glances. What danger? The captain pressed. The LYR turned their gaze to the stars above. Their voices dropped into silence, then rose again, trembling like a warning. There is a shadow beyond the rim. Older than us. Older than all of us. It stirs again. It consumes without mercy. The council is blind. The empires are blind. Only you, because you are unbound, may stand against it. The words struck the humans like ice. A greater enemy? Something older than the LYR? Something that could consume the galaxy. The captain's voice hardened. Why us? We are small. We are new. Why not fight it yourselves? The LYR shifted in color again, their light dimming. Because we cannot. We have grown too rigid, too slow. The others are too proud, too divided. But you adapt. You think where others follow. You survived against the Vorax not because of strength, but because you are unpredictable. That is why the shadow fears you. And that is why we fear you too. The words hung in the air like a blade. The humans realized the truth. The LYR did not reach out to be friends. They reached out because they were desperate. Humanity was not being invited to an alliance. They were being tested. Perhaps even used. Back on Earth, when the captain's report was received, the leaders sat in grim silence. If they speak truth, one strategist said, then there is an enemy greater than the Vorax. And if they lie, another replied, then they seek to control us, to turn our fear against us. The old general clenched his jaw. It does not matter. Whether they lie or not, the galaxy is changing. We cannot go back to being ignored. We must move forward. And forward means preparing for both, the Council and the Shadow. In orbit, ships continued to rise. In the deep labs of Earth, new devices were born. Not for show, not for power, but for survival. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, something stirred. Something vast. Something hungry. For the first time, humanity realized the galaxy's mockery was only a small beginning. The real test was still ahead. And this time, if they failed, there would be no galaxy left to laugh. The council chamber was restless. Reports poured in like a storm. Fleets moving without orders. Borders shaken by whispers. Accusations flying between allies. But then came the news that silenced every voice. Earth has spoken with the LYR. The words struck harder than any weapon. The counselors froze. The LYR, ancient and silent for centuries, had reached out to no one. No empire. No race. Not even the Vorax. And yet, they had spoken to humanity. The chamber exploded with fury. "This cannot be," shouted the Threx warlord. "They are unworthy," hissed the Clith speaker. "Why would the Lyr break their silence for them?" demanded the Thar envoys, their shimmering forms flickering with anger. The Vorax High Speaker rose, claws gleaming in the light. His voice shook the chamber. "This proves what I have said. Humanity is not a child race. They are a poison. The Lyr see it. The galaxy must act before it is too late." But beneath the anger, something darker grew: fear. The galaxy did not understand the Lyr. No one did. Their knowledge was ancient, their vision beyond comprehension. If the Lyr had chosen humanity, then perhaps humanity was not what they seemed. Whispers began. Some wondered if Earth had already made a secret alliance. Others claimed the Lyr had armed them with forbidden knowledge. The chamber turned to chaos again, voices clashing like blades. Finally, the eldest of the council, the Seraphine Elder, spoke. His voice was soft, but it silenced all others. "The Lyr are not fools. If they chose humanity, there is a reason. Perhaps it is wisdom. Perhaps it is fear. Either way, the balance has broken. If we do not act, the galaxy itself may change forever." And so, the council made a decision. Spies were sent. Fleets were moved closer to Earth's borders. Trade routes were cut. Every empire, whether ally or rival, began to prepare, not only for war with humanity, but for war with each other. The galaxy had become a powder keg, waiting for a single spark. Meanwhile, on Earth, the report of the Council's anger reached the war room. Leaders studied the intercepted transmissions. The room was heavy with silence. "They know about the Lyr," one strategist whispered. The general's voice was grim. "Good. Let them fear. Fear keeps them from uniting." But another spoke, his tone sharp. "Fear can also unite them against us. If they see us as a threat greater than each other, they will strike together." The strategist leaned forward, eyes cold. "Then we make sure they never see the same picture. Let them fight shadows while we prepare for the real one." At those words, the room grew darker. Because humanity had not forgotten what the Lyr had warned them. The shadow. And now, the first signs appeared. Far beyond the rim, in the black where no empire dared to go, strange signals began to whisper. Ships sent to patrol the void failed to return. Colonies near the edge reported stars dimming in the night sky, as if light itself was being swallowed. At first, the galaxy dismissed it. Sensor errors. Supernova remnants. Natural collapse. But then came the screams. A Threx outpost, fortified with cannons that could shatter moons, sent a single transmission before it vanished. "It is not an army. It is hunger." The message cut off, leaving only static. The outpost was gone. Not destroyed. Gone, as if it had never existed. When the council received the report, they panicked. Fleets were sent to investigate. None returned. And in the silence, whispers grew louder. The Lyr's warning was true. The shadow was real. But the council did not admit this openly. To admit fear was to admit weakness. Instead, they turned their rage back toward humanity. "Their rise has awakened this darkness," cried the Clith speaker. "They brought this curse upon us," howled the Threx warlord. The galaxy needed someone to blame. And humanity was the perfect target. On Earth, the leaders listened to the intercepted broadcasts. The old general clenched his fists. "They blame us for what is coming. They will use this to unite against us." The scientist's voice was quiet, almost trembling. "Perhaps they are right. Perhaps our disruption has shaken something in the dark." The room fell silent. Then the strategist spoke, his voice sharp as a blade. "It does not matter who is to blame. The shadow is real. And when it comes, the council will be too divided to stop it. That leaves one truth: if the galaxy is to survive, humanity must lead. whether they want us or not. Outside the war room, the shipyards burned with light. New fleets were rising. Silent, sharp, cunning. Humanity was not preparing for glory. They were preparing for survival. And in the cold edge of space, something vast opened its eyes. The shadow had awakened. The shadow came without warning. It was not a fleet. It was not an empire. It was not anything the galaxy had ever faced. It came like a storm across the stars, swallowing light, breaking signals, bending space itself into silence. The first to fall were the outer colonies. Entire worlds blinked out of existence, their transmissions cut in mid-sentence. Fleets sent to defend them vanished without trace. Where the shadow passed, only darkness remained. The council panicked. Empires turned on each other, desperate to save themselves. Some tried to flee inward, abandoning border worlds. Others blamed humanity, still shouting in the chamber while the stars themselves died around them. But Earth did not waste time with arguments. Humanity had listened to the LYR. Humanity had prepared. In orbit above Earth, the fleet was ready. Not large, not grand, not shining like alien armadas, but precise. Every ship was different, designed with purpose. Some to strike. Some to vanish. Some to blind the enemy. A puzzle of war, built for the unknown. The signal came. The shadow had entered the solar system. It appeared not as ships, but as a living void. Shapes without form. Hulls that melted into smoke. Eyes like stars burning black. Weapons that did not fire beams or missiles, but waves of silence that erased energy, erased metal, erased thought. The galaxy watched from afar, expecting Earth to finally fall. They whispered, "This is the end of them." But humanity did not fight like the others. The first human ships moved not forward, but sideways, scattering into patterns that made no sense. The shadow struck, but the strikes fell empty, hitting only false signals and decoys. Then, from the darkness, human missiles streaked forward. Not powerful. Not bright. But clever. Each one split into dozens, each one changing course mid-flight, weaving through impossible paths. The shadow tried to consume them, and failed. Explosions lit the void. For the first time, the shadow recoiled. The galaxy gasped. The battle raged. Human ships darted between planets, using gravity itself as a weapon. They slingshot around Jupiter, diving in and out of its storms to hide. They fired weapons not to destroy, but to distract, to confuse, to trick the shadow into chasing ghosts. The shadow fought with hunger. Humanity fought with thought. And slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. But victory did not come without cost. Human ships burned. Pilots vanished into silence. Stations crumbled under the weight of the shadow's strike. Earth trembled. Yet still, the fleet held. At the heart of the battle, one ship carried the weapon the scientists had built in secret, the pulse. A device that did not destroy, but blinded. When it fired, the entire solar system shook with a wave of resonance. For a moment, the shadow staggered, its form flickering, its hunger broken. And in that moment, humanity struck with everything. Missiles, mines, traps hidden in asteroid fields, energy bursts timed to perfection. The void ripped apart under the storm. The shadow shrieked, not in sound, but in silence that made the stars tremble. And then, it retreated. The shadow was not destroyed. It could not be destroyed. But it was pushed back. Beaten, for the first time in memory. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. For centuries they had mocked Earth. For months they had feared them. And now, they saw the truth. The weak species had faced what no empire could face, and survived. On Earth, the war room was quiet. The generals stood in silence, the scientists pale with exhaustion. They knew this was not the end. The shadow would return. Stronger. Hungrier. But they also knew something else. Humanity had proven that the shadow could be fought. that the galaxy was not doomed. And in the council chamber, the voices were no longer mocking, no longer angry. They were afraid and hopeful. Some whispered of alliance. Others whispered of surrender. But all of them spoke of one name now, with respect they had never given before. Humanity. They were no longer the weak, no longer the forgotten, no longer the mocked. They were the hunters in the dark. And the galaxy would never laugh at Earth again.